All right, so problem 11. Here's the thing that I think is throwing you guys off, and it's one thing that I hate about the English language. Biannual. What does biannual actually mean? Olivia?
2 times a year.
2 times a year. What else could it mean? Baylor?
2 times a term.
No.
Once every 2 years.
Once every 2 years. Anytime that you see us using by something, it means twice, not every 2. So that's a little misleading when we start talking about like by, because that prefix just means twice, but it doesn't specify whether it's twice per year or every 2 years. But biannual, like used here, talking about twice per year. So let's separate these out. Look at bank A, bank B, right? Or do they say A, B? I'm going to say A, B. So let's use blue is the $4,000, 9% interest, compounded annually, 12 years. So to compute my balance here, it's going to be the principal, the 4,000, times 1 plus R. Now here's the thing about the R. You've got to take the interest rate divided by how many times it happens in a year. Well, if it's only compounded annually, it's once per year, and dividing by 1 makes no change. Then my N is the total times it happens, which again, if it only happens once per year and it happens for 12 years, it's to the 12th. So we take my 1.09, raise it to the 12th power, then multiply by 4,000, and we get the final account balance, which, guys, they've left the money here for 12 years. That's a long time. $11,250.66, but we would round to the nearest dollar, so that would really be $11,251. That was the easier one, because it was compounded annually, straightforward, plug it in, make it happen. Another bond, we'll call this B, was 4,000 at 9% interest. However, it's going to compound biannually for 12 years. The only change in this formula is going to be that now my rate is going to be the 0.09 divided by 2, so it becomes 0.045. And the N is going to be that 12 years times 2 times a year, so that's 24. So now my balance will be the 4,000 times the 1 plus 0.045 to the 24th. That looks kind of bad. You got it?
11,504.05 cents, but it says
11,504.05.
Yeah.
So if we're rounding to the nearest dollar, we just chop off the 5 cents. So the more times your interest is compounded per year, the more money you'll make. Because remember, every time you compound that interest, it bumps over into your balance, and now you're making the same interest percent, but off of more money. Make sense? Does that help, Lily?
Yeah.
Another one, I'm not just going to do every question up through 15, but another specific problem that gave you issues.
4.
4?
4, yeah.
Yeah, 4. Wait, I got 4. I got 4.
Hey, doesn't matter.
I mean, I like that question.
Eat it.
This is still compounded annually. Oh, here's the issue that you're facing. They'll need $60,000, which means that $60,000 is actually the ending balance. So what you'd want to set up is $60,000 is equal to, we don't know the principal, 1 plus, well, my rate is the 0.06 and it's compounded annually, so it's still just 0.06 to the 6 years. So we calculate what this is, and again, this is where the whole leave it in your calculator thing comes into play. So you would type 1.06 to the 6th. Yeah, you get 1.4185191112.
Yeah.
Leave it there. Then type in your 6,000 and divide it by the second and then the negative symbol, which will really plug in the answer from before, which will divide it by this.
Oh.
It should really pop up and say ANS. So you'll type in 60,000 divided by second, the negative symbol, plugs in ANS, and you get your principal amount. They should invest 42,297, but if we round to the nearest dollar, nearest hundred, so 300.
I didn't know.
No?
You just divide the 60,000 divided by the numbers in front.
That's what we did, but I wrote this so you could see in the calculator what you'd want to do. But it's not just the numbers in the parentheses, it's the numbers in the parentheses raised to the power. So really here we divided by that 1.418 blah, whatever it was. But you don't really want to write it all down and type it all back in. That's why we use the second answer, that little function. Which that will help you immensely as you go through your high school career, just being able to plug in the previous answer that you had. No?
I think you can also just hit the plus button, right? Or whatever button you need and it'll automatically plug in the answer.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't do that if you're trying to take 60,000 divided by that quantity, because that quantity has to be the denominator.
I kept
Other
storing
questions?
The number.
Just store it as A and then replace it on the next problem. Yeah, you can do that too. Any other homework questions? Going once. Going twice.
$2.
Sold to the man in the gray sweatshirt.
Yes!
That was already captured.
Well,
Ew, what is that?
All right. Today's lesson, I guarantee, I promise, I swear to you, is easier than yesterday.
Promise?
Huh?
Promise? You just did.
I just promised for. Oh,
Alright, you gotta promise again.
pinky swear.
Do a pinky promise.
So,
that's what he just did.
when we talk about percent change, we have yet to talk about percent error. Because we went over those problems, we're actually going to skip this for a moment. We're just going to skip your lunch and go right to it. So, I love gardening. No joke, honest to you. I enjoy gardening. I like my house to have nice plants, and actually, one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten was I was outside putting down mulch and stuff, and this lady was walking her dog, and we, at that point, had lived in our house for like a year and a half. And we ripped out a bunch of bushes in the front of the house, and we planted a bunch of new stuff, and hydrangeas and grasses, and not grass like green grass, but like tall grasses. And this lady walking by said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years, and this is the best I've ever seen this house look." And I was like, oh, yes, success. So, it like really, landscaping raises your property value. And I know I'm going to sell my house eventually, so I want the property value to be really high. So, let's say I go to Home Depot and I buy a flower already growing. Because if you buy a flower already growing, you know it's good. In the spring, we'll have our flower sale from Fort Myer. Fort Myers stuff is awesome. Those are the tomatoes that I grew this summer and everything, so your parents should buy from the Fort Myer garden sale.
Sponsored.
I buy this flower, and actually I have to go to the notes because my digits isn't working quite right today. So I gotta pull it up here. Where are you? So when I planted the plant, it was 10 centimeters. I water it, I put Miracle-Gro on it, come back a week later, it's at 15 centimeters. If I want to talk about the percent change that has happened, I want to talk about the amount of change that took place and divide it by where it had started or its original value. This is just like our percent equation, part divided by whole, except our part is the part that changed and our whole is what it used to be. So 5 over 10 is really a half, which comes out to be 50%. Likewise, though, we go on vacation, and this really happened. We go on vacation, my roommate forgets to water the plants, come back, plants all wilty, it's sad. So now, when we left for vacation, the plant was 20 centimeters. When we got back from vacation, it was all wilty and sad, and it was now 15 centimeters. So again, it changed by 5. However, it changed by 5 compared to it had been at 20. So now it's 1/4, which is really 25%. Any questions on how we do this?
This seems easy.
So our general formula for percent change is just change, whether it's getting bigger or smaller, it's just the change
So
over the original or what it was.
so it's how it's getting like.
So on the second one, it's decreasing. It was 20 when we left for vacation. We came back, and it was at 15. And I'm out there crazy measuring things. People are judging me. No, I don't measure my plants. But I do take pictures of things in the grocery store, and sometimes I get really weird looks. For now,
So wouldn't you have to multiply that by 100 to get a whole?
that's how we go from 0.25 to 25%. Or you can just know that 1/4 is 25%. Other questions? You got this written on your paper? Change over original? Or change over what it was? That's a good way to think about it, because you're thinking like, what was it before it is its current? So that can always help you. Not necessarily what did it start at, but what was it? So some of you guys know Mr. Roman because you have older siblings that came to school here, right? Mr. Roman is not like this, but the joke always was like, all right, so here we're with Mr. Roman and Jim.
That's it. Keep it going, Toby. 28, 29, 30.
Insane.
That's good. Good work.
112, 113, 114.
114. That's very good, Carl. Keep working that core. You guys are getting stronger every day.
Time frame. Like, how many sit-ups can you do in 2 minutes or something like that? Because maybe he just wants to be awesome. All right, so we've got to look at the percent change from month 1 to month 2. A lot of what we do at school is all focused on growth mindset. You guys don't even know why it's funny. It's funny because that was our common book.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like dying of laughter.
So you guys are only wasting your time.
Oh.
I had your test made. I was going to show it to you at the end of class so you know what to expect.
Can't we just do it today?
Shut up, Brian.
Whoa, unnecessary.
Please.
He's up here doing what he should be doing. Figure out your percent change by finding out first what is the amount of change and divide it by what was the quantity. So to find my percent for the push-ups, what is my amount of change? Wrong stack. Ella, what did we increase by? 15, right? From 15 to 30, we went up by 15. So that's my increase over, Lily, what was my original?
Wasn't your original 15?
My original was also 15. So now I have 15 over 15, which gives me 1?
Move the decimal.
100.
Ah, so Nate,
Move the decimal over 2 times.
move the decimal 2 times, and we get 100%. Think, we're going to come back to this question. Think about what it means to increase by 100%. What really happened there to his push-ups? Okay, we were going to come back to this question, but we might as well take it now.
Oh well, he just did like the same amount, and then not the same amount, but like he 15 did again. But
So
like
if you
more.
increase by the same amount you had already done, you double. So to go up, to increase by 150%, if you can fit it here somewhere, you want to write double. Buble.
Can you say it in Spanish? 'Cause we have Spanish next.
No.
No, we don't.
I like to jokingly try to like speak French because my wife actually can, so I make things sound French. I
Do
need
it.
double.
You
All right. So what's our increase here? Well, Ella, you're back on top again. Olivia, what's our increase? 14. What do I divide that by, Jackson?
Divide it by
100, because that's what we started at. And guys, when you have division by 100, you know that your percent value is actually just the numerator. So it's a 14% increase.
I mean, he did 114 crunches. Not the best.
Nah, 14% increase is pretty good if that was only from 1 month to the next. That's a good amount of change. Olivia?
I didn't do that, but I still got the same answer.
What'd you do?
I did, the original was 100, so I did 100 divided by 114, and I got 1.14. And then you just take off.
I think you did 114 divided by 100.
That's what I meant.
Okay. So Olivia did 114 divided by 100. Here's the thing though. You took new value divided by old. So you found that our new record is 114% of the previous.
Yeah, and then you just take
And you know that, well, if it's 114%, I need to get rid of the 100 and look at only the 14. So yeah, that works, but you're kind of like adding an extra step mentally. Like, instead of doing the subtraction to begin with, you kind of did the subtraction at the end and took away the 100 to get the 14%. So it works. It's just, I mean, if that works for your brain, okay.
Yeah, I don't really get what you're doing.
So what we are doing is saying by what percent is the increase. So if you had $10 and I give you another $2, that $2 increases your balance, I guess we can say, by 20%. You now have 120% of what you had before.
Yeah.
So we are only focusing on what is the amount of change. Like that difference, what percent is that?
Okay.
So if we look at the got it. Let's say Mr. Cabilo decides Einstein needs a friend.
Who does? Well, you put a
So we buy a frog. The frog, while sitting, measures 51 millimeters. But we have a high-speed camera. We film it in high speed. We look at it in slow motion. The longest the frog is extended is 89 millimeters. So we want to say, what is the percent change in the frog's compacted length to its extended length? So Zach, what do I do first?
So since the equation for the percent change is change over original, you would do 89 minus or subtracted by 51.
You said it right the first time.
Minus.
So if you say 89 subtracted from 51, you're saying 89 subtracted from 51. So if you say 89 minus 51, then you're saying it correctly.
Which is 38, and then 38 would be the change in the original because it said the question says from sitting to jumping.
Yep.
That means that the sitting, which was 51, so the 51 would be in the denominator. Then you subtract those two, gives
Divide.
you
You're good.
Gives you 0.74, and then some other stuff. Move it over by 2, and it gets you 74.
So we get approximately, since he didn't give me the other stuff.
Wait, but should we round it? Oh,
I don't know. What was the other stuff?
It was
500.
5.50980.
So wait, there's a 5 right after the 4?
Yes.
So if we're rounding, we'd be better to round to 75. Either, like, it is equally close, but the problem is the number after the 0, 38 divided by 51. So because this is 509, when we look at that 9, gentlemen, the 9 rounds the 0 up to a 1. 51 is closer to that next value, so that's why we round it up to the 75.
And homework, is it gonna how's it gonna ask us to round?
A lot of them to the nearest whole percent or the nearest tenth of a percent. Yeah. Questions? Seem easier than yesterday?
Yes.
All you gotta do is figure out the change, divide it by what the original was.
Yeah,
So we already talked about this. What's it mean to increase by 100%? We double. Double. Like Michael Buble. Huh?
I don't get it.
Michael Buble.
I have no idea.
He's a singer, makes all the girls' hearts melt.
My mom's favorite singer. I don't even know who that is.
So take Mrs. Goldring's love for Benedict Cumberbatch, and most women that at least like vocal music love. Not that they actually want to marry him or anything, but his voice is just really good. He's got a really nice Christmas album actually.
Yep, that's what she has all the time.
On Earth, I weigh 154 pounds. On the moon, just 25.5 pounds. Fortunately, everything else weighs much less up here as well. Check it out. I could never do this on Earth.
So, in reality, on the moon, there is still gravity. Huh?
Why did it drop? He let go of it and it dropped.
So, there's still gravity. There is still an atmosphere, but it's much less gravity than on Earth. So, this is the difference between mass and weight. Shahib, if you're going to be back there, I need you standing, bud. Mass is preserved. Weight, what were you going to say? Weight is?
I was going to say mass is based on how many particles there are in an object.
Right, so mass is preserved. You can't really change
weight
mass.
Is based on gravity.
Weight is relative or proportional to the amount of gravity that there is.
I tried to do the same thing that we did up here, and so is that right?
I don't know what you mean by the same thing that you did.
154 minus 25.5.
Yeah, so you want to calculate the change.
So then where do you put the answer?
So what was that difference?
128.5.
Now, we don't care that would actually, positive or negative, we don't care. We phrase that in the wording. So we'd say this was a % decrease of blah, blah, blah. But so that's the change. I take that and divide it by the original, or what used to be, which is the Earth weight.
Oh.
Does that help you? Yeah, because our percent is really change over original, or the old one. And if we're on the moon, thinking about what was my decrease, so then you got it enough.
It's about
Give me the decimal first.
It's 83.4415.
0.8344. That's enough.
Okay.
We move it 2 places. You just need enough to see where we round.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to round to the tenths here, it'd just be 83.4% decrease. So you on the moon weigh approximately what percent of your normal weight? Nah, that's the percent decrease. Shahid?
20.
Ooh, you're doing the subtraction wrong in your head. You're forgetting to borrow. Olivia?
Is it 17.6?
You weigh 16.6, or we could round up and say 17. On the moon, you would weigh approximately 17% of your Earth weight. Mass would be the same. Mass deals with particles. Weight relative to gravity. So, and we were having this discussion in Math 7 because we just covered this lesson earlier this week. And they said, well, is it dangerous to jump on the moon? I said, well, no, it's actually safer because you'll fall with less force. And they're thinking of the movies. They're thinking of the movies where you float away. There is an atmosphere around the moon. While you're in that atmosphere, you're not going to float away.
Like gravity.
Once you leave the atmosphere and you're just out in space and you're not in an atmosphere of a planet, then there's still gravity. Somebody argued, well, the sun has gravity and blah. Yeah, there's still gravity, but not enough to pull you towards something.
If you get near a planet, you start falling towards it. Yeah, what
If you get close enough,
And
yeah.
that would hurt. And how long?
You'd probably burn up before you'd ever make it.
if
We're so positive. You'd burn up before you hit the ground. It's okay.
At least you don't hit the ground.
Well, it would be quicker,
Try this.
quicker death.
That state up north.
Todd State.
That state up north. This is a real situation. Every time we do a census is like a big old survey of everybody in the United States. Every time we do a census, they reallocate how many representatives every state gets. Who knows how many representatives are in the House? Nobody in Math 7 could figure this out for me, so I'm curious. In the House of Representatives, all the states, representatives combined. Zach?
It's like 102.
Higher. Sheeb? Higher.
300. 750.
No.
It's like 138.
No.
299.
Nope.
It's over 100. 236.
There are.
898.
As Seth is probably Googling it. Mr. Williams, do you know how many representatives are in the House?
435.
He's already
I have not the
You
slightest.
cheater.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Seth cheated. It's 435.
I want a calculator.
When I was your age, there were only 48 states.
Mm.
Didn't know that, did you?
No.
There was no Alaska. What was the other?
Hawaii, right? Yeah, Hawaii hadn't been added yet either.
What was
Alaska and Hawaii were the last two.
Hawaii
to- it was just a landmass.
Hawaii was added in 1950.
Alaska was part of Canada.
Yeah, and then Alaska was
Alaska was the last state, right?
1968.
And Alaska is bigger than, like, the landmass of Alaska is bigger than that of, like, multiple states all put together.
Yeah,
Like,
3 times the mass of Texas.
Was it
yeah,
Canada?
it's huge. So here's why I talk about that. When your population changes, the amount of representatives you get changes. How many senators does each state get?
East. Or me? Oh,
Yeah.
East state gets 2 senators.
Each state gets 2 senators no matter what. There are 100 senators in the House. So, or in the Senate. The Senate is equal representation. The House of Representatives is a proportional representation based on population. So, between 2000 and 2010, if Michigan, said it, lost
You said trash.
a representative, what do you think happened to their population? It decreased because people wised up. They realized, man, get out of here.
Get out of here.
So, figure out what your change is, and then what percent that changes relative to what the previous amount was.
So like,
This is why we say don't share, because not everybody wants it.
what's that really small state like?
Like Rhode Island?
Yeah. So that would have like not very.
Here, solve this and I'll look it up.
You can breathe
That's
people.
You can breathe
Give me a new tab. Rhode Island representatives and senators. Rhode Island, Rhode Island has 2 representatives. That's it. Because their population is so small. Now, if we look at Ohio, Ohio has
A lot. Whoa.
Who did we meet?
Is that
No,
currently?
search up the senators. I can't remember the name of the person that my dad's friends.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
They move a lot.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Looks like right now we have 16.
You search Mike California. No,
Yeah, so then if we look at California,
Joyce Beauty.
our you're thinking of darn it, we met with him.
He's an Ohio senator.
Yeah. And then we saw the Senate.
That's what we did. Kevin McCarthy.
They have 53 representatives. California has such a large population, they have 53 representatives.
How much does Hawaii have?
So that's why representation is based on population. Hawaii, crap, it's looking up like their information, like how to contact.
We should call Hawaii.
We should call Hawaii.
It's, 2 in Hawaii, each of the population. Yeah, so Hawaii gets like, I think the minimum you can have is 2.
So let's see the bar.
Like, I think every state, no matter how big they are, has 2.
At least.
I can't find it.
Right, yeah, at least 2. So,
Kevin Bacon.
Carrie, what's our change here? 1, right? So we went down by 1, so our change is 1. We take that 1 and we divide it by what? What was our original?
58.
Stop. I'm using cards. But yes, you were right. 115. So, Sheep,
6.6.
give me the decimal first, people.
0.0666. 6 repeated.
So 1/15 is actually another one of those repeating decimals. So when we move this 2 places, we get 6 approximately 0.7%. So they lost from 2000 to 2010. They gave up almost 7% of their representatives.
Wow. Is that bad?
That's great. That's
Good for us.
Let's
Now, because that means one of the other states increased and they picked up that other representative. No matter what, it always totals out to 435. So every time there's a census, they recalculate, they tell the states, hey, you have to give up this many or have this many, and the next election that state has, that change happens. Questions? All right, time for game show.
Yeah.
Do not touch your calculator. I see you, Mr. Boyer.
Sorry.
I need Pranav, Leah, Peyton, James, and Noah.
Yes.
Come on up for, I don't even know what to call it. The percent is right. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. All right, so here's your goal. Here's your goal. Take a moment. Hey, all of you playing at home, please play along with us. Take a moment. Take a moment. Evaluate the situation. You have a sunflower. It was 11 centimeters. You come back after, and it's 20 centimeters. You want to estimate the percent change.
Okay.
Somebody needs to start. Yeah, you just grab a dot and slide it to where you think it goes. Sure. They're in the middle right there. All the different colored dots. You're estimating the percent change. You see your original and you see your after.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
Just do it.
Okay.
Go for it. Get it like the
Who knows?
animal.
I'll go. I was gonna go, but. Wait,
Pranav, if you're gonna go, go.
Okay.
You just push people out of the way to then rub your hands and make a scene.
Yes, James.
All right, sit down once you've gone.
Sit down.
I'm wrong.
Just slightly higher than the red.
I'm dark red.
Ooh, Leah's got her brain turned
Should be
on.
about 50%.
Hey, Leah, what was your change that you thought about here?
I was thinking 80%-ish.
Because what was the change in the plant height?
Almost
9, right? From 11 to 20 is 9. What was our original? You can sit down, you're fine. What is the rule for division by 11? You don't need a calculator because we know the trick. Seth?
Times the numerator times multiply the numerator times 9.
Multiply the numerator times 9. That repeats. So when Leah said, I was thinking like 80%, spot on. It's 81. If we round, it'd be approximately 82%. So who was Red Dot?
Me.
Red Dot and, well, so Pranav, Leah, see me after class.
No.
I mean,
You're in trouble.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
Trouble for when?
All right, ready? Ashton, Riley, Shahib, Karen, and Nate.
You got one person that just goes like.
Ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-ba-da-da-da. That's the Price is Right music, by the way, if you guys don't know. All right, have at it. You're estimating the percent change in the balloon. Balloons are sad. After like a day or two, they just look sad.
they fade color and then they start.
The balloon that's still floating, but like halfway up and is all shriveled up. It's like,
It is depressing.
unless you get like the sweet Mylar balloon. Right, come on.
Just there.
Somewhere.
I don't know. Good job, Nate. Thanks. We should just put all of ours on top of each other. Oh, come on. It's not fair.
Shahib, being the black sheep of the crowd and going different. It's hard when you're the last person and you decide, hey, I think all of you don't know what you're talking about.
He's right.
Shahib, since you were so bold, What's the change that you thought of here? Not looking for percent. What's the amount of change? So to go from 65 to 120, you'd have to add, I'm thinking backwards here. Baylor? 55, right? We would take that 55 and put it over 120. I think those of you that placed your values out here were thinking that the denominator would be smaller or just not realize. Guys, 55 is less than half of 100. So you know your percent is going to be less than 50.
45.
Olivia, do you got it?
45. About 45.
It is 45%. So Shahib, although you were low,
I think no.
still see me after class.
Who's the other person though?
The dark, who was dark red? Yeah, you see me too. You're a little bit high, but I mean both of you were like 45 would have been like around here, so you're both pretty much the same distance away from it. You have a problem?
Everyone followed me.
Well, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't want to be first.
That happens sometimes.
So it was peer pressure, and then like
peer pressure. Nobody.
I don't think anyone made you go first.
based on my performance.
All right. People often get this wrong without using a calculator.
What?
I like how Grayson had just picked this up and then he just puts it back on the ground.
You just called him Grayson.
Jackson, see me after class.
Hold on. That's
You're all in trouble.
Jackson's like, you can call me Grayson any day you want. Without using a calculator, estimate the percent change in this situation.
I got it.
Without using a calculator, estimate the percent change in this situation.
I haven't talked to you a lot today.
Is there anyone that I haven't talked, like, Grace, would you like to contribute on this? No? Just checking.
I would love to contribute. What would your I'd love to fail.
So, Zach, because you're sitting back there not talking about how much you want to help, just raising your hand politely.
Okay, I think it would be 30%.
Well, it's 30, but you're falling into the trap that most people do. You see the 100 and you're like, oh yeah, 30 and 100, 30%. But that's not your original. Your original is 130 because you went from 130 to 100. So Baylor, we should actually have the denominator of.
Decrease by, I don't know. Oh, of 130.
I did it right.
And it's and my math might be wrong, but it's a decrease by 40%.
So let's think it through. Okay. Well, let's get a few opinions. And Olivia, what do you have approximately?
I have approximately 23%.
Like 23, 20, a little. Think about this. I can chop those zeros off, right?
Yeah.
So now I have 3 over 13. If I think about 3 over 12, well, that would be 25%. But as my denominator gets bigger, my value gets smaller. So we could say we know it's below 25. It'll be like, I don't know, around 23 maybe.
Yeah.
Do the math, actually. Do 3 divided by 13. What do you get, Ryan?
it's gonna be 23 or 0.2307, which is like.
Yeah, so it's 23.07%.
Yeah.
I did it right.
So Olivia's estimation was very, very close. Based off that mental reasoning of 3/12 would be 25. My denominator got bigger. My value has to get smaller. This makes sense? You guys think that this is easier? Right on. So, your Chapter 8 Mastery. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording because I don't need to show the whole world your mastery. Sorry, world. Goodbye.